Welcome to Life Goals Masterclass. I'm your host Pallavi. In today's session, we are going to discuss education planning for your child in the new age. This exclusive session will address the child education aspect of financial planning and deliberate as to how and what you need to change in the post-pandemic world. We'll emphasize on the need for advanced planning and new age expenses for child education and also talk about the highlights of what has changed after the new education policy. Let me introduce you to our eminent speakers. I'm joined by Dheeraj Sehgal, Chief Distribution Officer, IB Bajaj Allianz Life. A results-driven professional, Dheeraj brings with him over 2 decades of experience in the financial services industry and pharmaceutical industry, leading multiple roles in sales and distribution, building new business models and defining business strategies. My second panelist is Mr. Mohandas Pai, Chairman, Manipal University. Mohandas Pai is Padma Shri awardee and current chairman of Manipal Global Education. Before joining Manipal Global, he was a member of the Infosys Board of Directors and head Administration, Education and Research, Finance, Human Resources, and Infosys Leadership Institute. Mohan believes that illiteracy and lack of education are the roots of social backwardness and has worked extensively in the basic education sector. I welcome both of you to this session.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
So let me begin with you, Mr. Mohandas Pai, since we're talking about education and you are a name in itself when we talk about education and what has changed. So let me just take your first few thoughts on what has changed after the pandemic and also your observations on the new education policy.
Well, let me say that we are in the midst of the digital revolution. Remember, 200 years ago, the Industrial Revolution came. And it took time for its impact to be felt on the world. But now, with the pandemic and the lockdown of the economies globally, digital revolution has come with a bang. It's always there, but now it is accelerated. What has happened in the last 1 year would have taken maybe 5 to 8 years to happen. To give some data, out of 7.8 billion people on the planet, maybe 6.5 billion people have a mobile connection. 4.5 billion people have an internet connection. So we are in the midst of a digital revolution where everybody is connected. And what does it mean? This digital revolution means that knowledge is available to everybody on the internet. Everybody is connected. Business happens on the internet. The world has shrunk. Enormous amount of information is available all over the world at almost free cost, with almost no cost. And today, automation, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning is taking place in a very, very large way. A lot of jobs are getting automated. Robots will be able to do 60% of what humans do in the next 10 years. Autonomous cars are coming. So that entire facet of the digital revolution is going to impact the way all of us live. And when we talk about children's education, we must see what kind of an education a child should get in school and what kind of a mindset parents should have to make sure that children get the right education. Because you must know, Pallavi, that across the world, fertility has come down. The UN had said by 2100, the world's population will be 11 billion. Now they're saying it will be 9.6 billion. Even in India, our fertility rate has come down to 2.0. That's the latest data. And we're only increasing population by 1.1% a year. People are living longer. People are having lesser children. And data says highly educated women who become mothers have only one child. So for a large part of the middle class and the lower middle class, your children will be the most important thing in your life. And you're not going to have many children, maybe a child, maybe 2. I don't think more people have more than 2. So all of us want to invest in our children and make sure they get the right education to meet the needs of the digital revolution which has come upon us. And now the government has come out with a new education policy which liberalized education. Now I'll just touch upon a couple of facets what is required. The world is going to be a very different world in the near future and maybe 5-10 years from now. And in that world, what are the qualities our children should have? Our children should have a problem-solving attitude. Children, when they're born, are very curious. When they go to school, they're very curious. Sadly, in our school system, we push a lot of information into their minds and make them stop thinking and do rote learning. The new education policy says very clearly that they must have 12 years of schooling, and they must have 3 years of preschool. And in preschool, it should be all work. And in the first 2 years of a formal school system, they must do problem-solving exercises. Then they must go out into society and find out what is happening. They must interact more with society. The educational content that we push down the throat has been reduced. more problem solving, vocational education, working with their hands, retaining curiosity. The whole model of children education that we are used to, maybe we grew up, of course, Pallavi, you're much younger. Maybe Dheeraj and I are much older. We grew up in a very different era. You grew up in a different era. But now in the future, it's going to be very different. So children should make sure, parents should make sure that the children get the right kind of education. New education policy supports that. And it's going to be very expensive. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be technology led, and they have to be competitive. And we have to create, children who are global citizens, because opportunities for them will be global. It may not be in their own country of origin. It may be all over the globe, and competition is going to be intense.
Sure, sure. In fact, that really reinforces the fact that why we need to be prepared. And I think Dheeraj can very well understand and explain us this. So Dheeraj, if you could tell us, why is there a need for educating every parent about this? The things that we've just discussed, any parent, any person who is, whether he's salaried, whether he's self-employed, but definitely there's a need to educate them about education inflation. So could you please explain us this whole thing and why it has become so very important now?
Yeah, so Pallavi, first I tell you that we had this survey conducted last year with Kantar, IMRB Kantar, and out of the various life goals which people articulated there, children's education continues to be one of the top goals for which people are today focused on. And also, it said that nearly 50% of the Indian parents, they found it difficult to afford higher education for their children because of lack of financial support. So, and just before it started, Mr. Pai was mentioning that the typical Indian parents would not really want to take loans for educating their children. At least that's how we are, our value system is. So if our life goal remains revolving around children's education, and education is becoming expensive, if you look at the top B schools, the top IIMs today have a fee of anywhere between 25 to 30 lakh rupees, which used to be anywhere in the range of 15 lakh rupees till 5 years back, or maybe lesser than 15 lakh rupees. Yeah. So inflation is playing a very critical role in deciding the affordability, and as parents, we need to be aware of that, and we need to start preparing for that, start factoring the inflation part in savings that we keep aside for our children's education. The safest way for that would be, there are a lot of tools which are available on the internet today. You can go and pick up any of those calculators which factor in inflation, which also factor in what is the kind of return that you're expecting on your portfolio, which also gives you an idea whether you are a conservative, a moderate, or an aggressive investor, and on the basis of that, what is the kind of return that you can expect. And it gives you an idea on how much you should be saving on a monthly or a yearly basis if you have to reach at that financial goal, or you have to reach at that amount which you are planning to have for your children's education at the time when it is needed. So my suggestion there would be that it is very, very important to decide and define that amount. In financial terms, we call it future value of money. So if your goal today is 5 lakh rupees, considering the inflation, how much that 5 lakh rupees is going to look like, let's say 10 or 15 years hence, when the parents need that money for their children's education. How much do you need to start investing today? And what kind of long-term investment tools do you pick up, or long-term investment instruments do you pick up, so that you are systematically investing and meeting your goals adequately?
Right, right. Mr. Pai, just since we're also talking about how things have changed after the pandemic, according to you, are there any new changes or at least new expenses, if you would like to answer that one, which are not visible to parents? And of course, there's a cultural impact and other issues, but has anything changed because of the current crisis?
Of course, because digital education has taken off. It means that every child will want a tablet, rich
Right.
tablet, 32 GB memory. Maybe they want an Apple, iPad. Okay, they want an internet connection, or they want a laptop, and they want educational videos. EdTech companies, there are 5 or 6 EdTech unicorns in this country who have come up. Everybody has got content. They want to participate in classes. Then they want their children to learn life skills. So what was given in schools now is going beyond the schools. And then they want them to spend their time outside the class, learning many other things like music or sports or whatever it is. You must have heard of the term tiger moms, right? These are moms who spend the entire day looking after the children, hoping they'll all become geniuses. They'll all have multifaceted skills because they invest a lot of their life on the child, and there are very few children. So I think, the add-ons to what was education earlier is become that much more expensive. And there are so many bewildering choices for parents today, all over the place. There's so much of marketing happening. So they have to learn how to choose. So it is not only school, it is post-school that really gives options to parents. And I think that is added expense. Because if you're a parent, you want the best for your child. You always worry whether you are giving enough for your child, right? When we are growing up, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, life was simpler because, people could go out and play, they could go to the library, they could go for long walks. And now I think with increased urbanization, with the concentration of human activity in cities and the advent of digital media, I think the options available to you are that much more. And in the pandemic, everybody has been home. They experienced all that, they tasted all that. So I think it's a very, very different world with a very different cost structure that parents have to meet.
Sure. In fact, in this virtual learning environment, this has also created a space for additional skills, like you mentioned about music, but as we see, there are coding classes and there are certain types of classes which at a very early age are introduced to children. According to you, Mr. Pai, how much of this really helps in the long term? And is there a need to earmark separate expenses, corpuses? I'll take this one from Dheeraj as well, but first of all, what are your views?
Pallavi, I would say that we must allow a child to grow up at their own pace, not force too many things on them. The options are bewildering. I would like a child to learn coding at the age of 6, 8, 9. It's not required. They can do it much, much later. They don't have to do all the things now. You see, the most important thing of a child's life is to allow the child to grow up, enjoy childhood. Childhood is a great experience, fascinating experience, playing with people, doing everything else. Parents are almost forced sometimes with marketing to spend unnecessarily on things which may not be required at that point of time. Well, I may be a conservative, but that's my view. I would advise every parent, pick up a very good school, a school where there are good teachers as close to you as possible, bear the cost, and then a few additional classes that you want, which allow children to create their own networks, meet other children, be with peers, and satiate the curiosity. And give them some digital tools, not something to play games. You got to be careful because we don't want them to be addicts, but give them a nice tablet with some digital contents so they satiate their curiosity and spend a lot of time with them, teaching them how to be responsible, how to use, and make sure they play sports. Because Pallavi, in the digital world, the most important thing you must have is to be a human being. We should not make widgets of children. Children of human beings, we're all human beings. We need socialization. We need to meet, we need to talk, we need to hold hands, we need to work together, we need to play together. That is the most important thing in society. And that is going to be very, very valuable as we go along. How do we interact with people? Because we are not algorithms. And for a child, I would advise all parents that you have to spend to make sure your children get the best education. You have to make sure that they are digital natives, but do it in moderation, so that you don't take on an unnecessary burden. You can afford it, and the child also enjoys the childhood.
Right. Mr. Dheeraj, since we're talking about the different kinds of skills, and since parents are pressured into this because obviously of the marketing and the kind of environment we're living in, the digital world, so to say. So could you tell us how can insurance plans help parents in planning for this new educational age, and what should be the right strategy for parents to follow?
Sure. First of all, I must acknowledge that, the words of Mr. Pai, they come as such a big relief and learning, especially to come from someone who's been a pioneer in the IT industry, not only in our country, globally, and emphasizing on the human side of growing up. That's very, very important, Mr. Pai. Thank you so much for that advice. Coming to how insurance can help in planning for new age education. Pallavi, if I take you back a few years, till a few years back, when in our country we did not have too many investment options, our parents only had two primary sources of savings. One was LIC policy, second was fixed deposits. Or maybe we had, some of them who believed in systematic monthly savings. We had recurring deposits. Yeah. And my answer to the question that you asked me, it lies in that itself. That, the reason why all of us got educated in middle class families and our parents could afford that was because they had this habit of disciplined long-term savings, which they had started with. How insurance helps you is it's a long drawn product. You are paying your insurance premium for 10, 15, 20 years, and the maturity amount comes to you after the policy term has matured. So it's a disciplined way of investing. It doesn't really give you too many options of, there are options of withdrawing your funds premature, but it's not easy, and hence it builds that disciplined long-term savings habit for you. There are products which offer you guaranteed returns, which means that as parents you don't have to be worried about volatility in the interest rates. If you have invested in a certain plan today, then whatever is the rate which is guaranteed in that plan, you are going to get that rate at the time of maturity, which could be, let's say, 20 years hence as well. Another significant factor why insurance is a preferred mode for funding for education is the tax efficiency. The maturity amount that you get in insurance plans, subject to a couple of parameters being met, it is tax-free. So it becomes very, very efficient for you to save through an insurance policy. I also want to bring in another aspect of insurance here, which is protection, which is the plain, simple life insurance. So if as a parent, I feel that I need some amount of money 10 years hence to be provided for my children, in case of an eventuality during those 10 years period, so that my children's education doesn't get derailed, life insurance policies also offer you that element of protection. It takes care of your children's future goals. They remain protected. And within our company also, we have products like GIG, which is a guaranteed plan, or we have a product which is called Flexi Income Goal, which starts giving you interim payouts. And these products have all been designed keeping the long-term goals of people in mind. So I think insurance really helps you in making systematic, disciplined, long-term investments, which are tax efficient, as well as offer you protection.
Sure. In fact, Mr. Pai, you said that keeping the children free and let them explore on their own can really help. So if I were to ask you that letting them explore their interest at an early age, how will this help in the education planning part? Like, if parents are clearer at an early age as to what their child wants to pursue, that can really help them in earmarking that kind of amount, because as you said in the beginning of the session, that the education expenses are soaring, and it's going to be the same way in the coming years also. What is
we must understand that the most important asset for a human being after they get education is a problem-solving mindset.
Right.
Now, do you have a mindset which is that of a problem solver? And for that, you need to have curiosity. You need to have the thinking ability to be logical, to analyze data and come out with solutions. Because in real life, all of us are problem solvers. every single day, every single moment, there are issues to be solved, and we solve them, some of them subconsciously, some of them deliberately, right? And if you go to business, if you look at employees or people in business, what is the most important asset that you want, most important skill that you want? That are problem solving. Because in future, the routine work is going to be automated. Today, a lot of work is automated. Let me give you some data. In the banking industry, over the last 15 years, banks' balance sheets are maybe gone up 5 times, 6 times. But employees have only gone up 5%. Why is that? Because there's so lot sort of automation. Now we are in the world of digital automation. We're in the world of artificial intelligence, machine learning. A lot more work is going to be automated. So most of the routine work that people did with their trained for in education is going to be automated. We don't require human beings to do. So what is the asset that one should have 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when you finish education? A problem-solving mindset, a curiosity, an ability to garner facts and to solve problems. And for that, you must have confidence in your own abilities. You must have the ability to look around you. And for that, you must have a well-developed personality. And that will only come when you have time to grow up, time to enjoy, time to be curious, time to do things that you want to do, time to have interest. Another important thing is, please remember, in future, a multifaceted skill is essential. Deep specialization is one thing that we want, but multifaceted skill to do many things, to understand many things, and to come out with your own viewpoint is going to be essential. And that means you've got to have a well-rounded personality, right? And that means you must be well-read. You must understand how to access facts, how to access information, and you must have a reasonable knowledge base with you. All this shares that what you need to do to succeed in future is very different from what you wanted earlier, right? And today, parents have the choice of letting the child do things that the child is interested in. Like, Dheeraj said earlier, you only had a recurring deposit, you had a bank deposit and LIC. Now there are hundreds of financial options available to you, right? In finance. Why is that? Options are available. That means the kind of jobs that are available are very high. Earlier, 15, 20 years back, you wanted a child to be a doctor, an engineer, maybe an MBA. Why not a dancer? Why not a musician? Why not a content writer? Why not an author? Why not a creative person, right? Why not a graphic designer? Why not so many things, right? I mean, why not? Why not a travel writer? So the options are available. And they're the options that are going to be much more valuable rather than run-of-the-mill skills that you had, which all of us possibly got because we are getting a very structured education. So I would say that give the child time. Don't spend unnecessary money. Don't burden your spell. Look at the child's interest and have a proper planning so that, the child gets a very good education, is a well-rounded personality. The child has time to grow up. And also, Pallavi, very important thing is, if you put too much pressure on the child when the child is growing up, the child's persona will not develop. The child does not know what it wants. It is curious. It's trying to look around to see what is his interest. And the child's talents come out for a period of time. Very often we as parents force things on children, right? If we force things on children because we want the child to be something we wanted to be or maybe we could not be. Right. So I would advise all parents, let the child grow up, create a situation where they can look at many things, they can be curious, and whatever the child wants, where the child thinks is interested, invest in that kind of a thing, but allow the child to grow up at his own pace. All children are bright. Everybody is bright. The key is how do you grow up? So I think, you got to think of all that, then work out what is required.
Right. These are some real gems coming out from Mr. Pai. Thank you so much for making this session even more interesting and insightful. So coming to you, Dheeraj, we are already learning a lot from Mr. Pai as to what has to be done and what is to be avoided. But when it comes to financial planning, are there any common mistakes which need to be completely avoided for a better result and better planning?
So I think the first common mistake which I have come across from investors or parents is that we don't have a sharp clarity on the goal itself. We don't know what is the future amount which is needed to fulfill my child's education goal. So first thing I would say is define your goal clearly. Second is start investing early. Third thing is, investment as a, overall investment as a philosophy is not a short-term philosophy. So plan long-term. When I say plan long-term, I mean to say stay invested. Don't get tempted by the volatility in the markets. There's a very famous Fidelity study, old Fidelity study, which said that the investors who made the highest returns were not the ones who were very smart in switching and timing the markets. They were the ones who forgot that they had money invested in Fidelity and it continued to grow for decades together. So I'm not saying forget your money, but all I'm saying is stay invested. Stay invested for long. Giving into the temptations of markets is probably a mistake which is to be avoided completely. Some of the things which really derail our long-term plans are a requirement for emergency funds. We at times are compelled to dip into our long-term goals, and that derails the plan. So create an emergency fund and always keep it aside. There are various rules of thumbs that we apply in financial planning, but typically it is said that at least 3 months of your monthly expenditure amount should be kept aside as an emergency fund, so that you don't have to dip into your savings, which you are making for your child's long-term goal. And last thing I would say is, if it is possible, lock in your money in the guaranteed products.
Mm-hmm.
Anything which takes care of the worries around interest rate fluctuation. Look at those investments. They will take a lot of your worries away.
Right. So Mr. Pai, one last question to you. Since we already talked about the multiple career options that the children have in front of them today, vis-a-vis which were there like maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So any piece of advice as to how the planning part can match up to the education needs of today?
Well, I would agree with Dheeraj. Everybody should save money for the rainy day. Mm-hmm. Because money is not going to grow on trees. It comes because you work hard, you don't consume everything that you earn, and you save. So we have to save. Mm-hmm. And we must be very careful that when we save, we keep the money safe. When we are younger, we have the temptation to put money into instruments which have got greater risk. Yes, we must take some risk when we are younger, but we must decide the quantum of money that we can take a risk on. So we always have money at call. And I am one of those who believe that you must consume less than you earn. Mm-hmm. Because if you consume more than you earn, then you're going to get into trouble, because you have children, you have family, the dependents, etc. So you've got to inculcate a habit of saving, and you must inculcate a habit of saving in your children too. Mm-hmm. Because remember, what we do in later life is very often what we are told as children and what we understood as children. So children should be taught to save money and to keep some money and not use the pocket money, not to spend the entire pocket money. And spend and accumulate money over a period of time, and spend what is essential for your child. Don't overspend. Don't try to do too many things because the value may not be there. Don't try to copy others. Sit down and think about what you want for a child and give them a very good education with values. Values are very, very important, right? You see the most successful people around the world. Many of them are grown up in middle-class families with great values, which they have even now. They're very humble. They're very down to earth. They're very, very understated, correct? And I think it's very important to have, because that is required for success in future. That's my personal view. And of course, when they finish schooling, we want them to go to the best colleges. We want them to get the best professional degree. And that for that too, you're required to save money. So I think you have to play it very, very carefully, because like I said earlier, you're going to have very few children. We don't have many children. And we have to lavish our love and care on the children. And as you get older, Pallavi, when you look back on your life, how will you determine whether you are being successful or happy? If a child is not doing well, if children don't do well after you work very hard 25, 30 years, what you look back and say, what have you done in your life? You could be the biggest, most richest person in the world. You could be the most powerful man in the world. But if your children are not done well, they don't settle down, they don't do well, they don't get a good education, they don't do, they're not doing, and they're not happy. I mean, your whole life is gone, right? So I think it's very essential that we do things in a very structured manner and make sure that we have enough for our children, and we inculcate the savings habit. We inculcate the right balance between frugality and spending.
Right. In fact, Dheeraj, just to close the session, as you rightly said during the session as well, that financial planning and good habits, this is something part of our daily life. It cannot be done in a day's time. So lastly, how can one make sure that the returns that one is aiming at on the education fund outspaces inflation? You obviously told a couple of things during the session, but just to summarize the whole thing.
First thing is that, power of compounding is known as the eighth wonder in the world. If I continue to invest for the long term, then the compounding of my returns on the investment is something which will adequately take care of inflation effect. Second thing is systematic investment will, in technical terms, it is called rupee cost averaging, which means that if I continue to invest a similar amount of money for a long period, and my investments are being deployed at different rates, that also is very effective in beating the inflation. Third thing is asset allocation. How much money do you want to invest in fixed income instruments? How much do you want to play in equities? There I would first say is, if you don't know how the equity markets or how the fixed incomes behave, rely on a good investment product, rely on fund managers and allow them to take decisions. But again, as a rule of thumb, there's one simple rule of thumb which says that 100 minus your age is the amount of money which should get exposed to equities. So, if somebody is at the age of 40, then 60% of the amount can go in equities. But if you're at 50, then you have to start reducing that. Mm-hmm. Know your appetite. Just because there's some product or some instrument which has given fancy returns, do you have that kind of appetite to play in high risk markets? That's something that only you would be able to tell for yourself. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the things which I feel focus on compounding, go for rupee cost averaging, focus on asset allocation, and be careful about where you're investing. If you're able to take care of all these things, I'm very confident that parents will be able to take care of inflationary increase in costs.
Sure. So as the education has changed, even the approach to child education planning has to be changed. Thanks a lot for your powerful words, and thanks for being part of this session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mike. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Dheeraj. Good talking to you.
We'll bring more such sessions. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned with Economic Times. Thank you.